Hello friends, welcome back to another CB Basics video. This is part 2 of Eventide rotation. It contains the second half of early game phase, mid game, and the buffs. Alright, let's just get into it. Before Arena, it's day again, your move speed becomes slower again, and your vision is restored. Taking the remaining Imperial now is more difficult than before, because your enemies can see you from a mile away, and there isn't an event for distraction. Overseer usually arrive during this phase, but they can arrive later, during, or after Arena. I'll talk more about Overseer later in its own section. So this phase starts at the end of Wild Moon and ends when Arena begins if you're a Paragon, and after Arena ends if you are not a Paragon. By the end of this phase, you ideally have achieved Control Strategic Outpost Position. I'll talk more about which outposts are best to control at a later section. Get the Overseer to at least raise its shield. Get to at least top 5 in kill streak if you play a good build for Arena, Luma Rifle for example, and kill as many potential Paragons as possible just before Arena timer hits 0. Don't be afraid to use your Primal on them if you're going to Arena. This is so that you can reduce the number of real players to as little as possible in Arena for easy win. Arena. If you're a Paragon, just do your best to win. If you are not a Paragon, this is where it gets interesting. This is the best time to kill opposing objectives, as their best players are not around to hinder your plan. So use this time to attack opposing objectives, Overseer for example, protect your own objectives, control as many outposts as possible to provide your returning teammates from Arena a secure passage to help you with the Overseer and to force opposing returning opponents to walk farther. And now we get to the mid-game. So, mid-game. You guys know the concept of power spike? In other MOBA games, there are clearly defined power spike points for different heroes. That's usually when they reach a certain level and unlock a certain ability, or when they obtain a certain item that's highly synergistic to them. So what do you do when you get a power spike? You capitalize on it. You kill opposing heroes that stand in your way and get to your next objectives, advancing your game. In fact, one of the signs that you master a hero is if you know when their power spikes occur, and you know that you have a time window to capitalize on that power spike before your enemies catch up to you, because they will catch up to you if you wait for too long. They too can power spike. But CB isn't like that. CB isn't a game of heroes, it's a game of loadout, and the items and abilities you play are unlocked before you enter the game. So how do you get a power spike in Eventide? Simple. Paragon buff, blue buff, Meganaut, Dreadnought, and Primal. And this phase is all about that. Mid-game is all about fighting for buffs, whether it is to gain it for yourself, to deny enemies from getting it, or to steal it from your enemies. And as I said before, once you get that buff, you need to capitalize on it. You need to use it to advance the game in your favor. Before Wild Surge. This entirely depends on whether your team wins or loses the Arena. If you win Arena, that means you got Primal and a full heavy charge. Get the next objectives, be it Overseer, Meganaut, or Dreadnought. Ideally, you have been provided an outpost by your non-Paragon teammates to return to that's close to the next objectives. If you lose Arena, that means you return empty-handed, and your enemies now have Paragon buff, Primal, and full heavy. It is now the task of you and your non-Arena teammates to rob them of all that advantage they just gained. Remember, this is a game of advantage. If their carry keep getting the advantage, the game will snowball out of your control. Here's how to do it. Make sure they return from Arena to an outpost that is far from their next objectives. Overseer, Dread, Meganaut, by capturing all the strategic outposts before they arrive. Spawn camp them at that unstrategic outpost with as many people as possible. You and your teammates got nothing to lose, but they do. Launch an all-out attack at them there, and force them to either die and give up their Paragon buff, or to waste their Primal on you and your friends far away from where they should be primaling, which is the objectives. Look, I know, outpost control isn't as easy as people make it seem to be. Sometimes you work hard to capture a lot of them, and enemy's outpost taker takes a few of them back from you, so it's completely understandable if you fail to rob your enemies of their advantage. But if there's one thing you need to remember, do not give them the opportunity to capitalize on that advantage they just gained. That means you never want to see 3 enemy Paragons returning from Arena at an outpost right next to your Overseer. You're gonna lose your Overseer for sure when that happens. So the point is, Try your best to rob them of their advantages. If you fail at that, at least don't let them capitalize on their advantages. Wild Surge. It's night again, so be ready to attack their Overseer if it's still alive by having Primal ready. They will be attacking your Overseer too, so be ready for that. Try to have a control over the target outpost at the start of this event, whether it's by sheer luck that your outpost gets selected, or by capturing it at the start of it. This will give you some free time at the middle portion of this event to do other stuff. You can use this time to attack their Overseer if it's still alive, but be ready to teleport to your Overseer and the event location when needed. When it's almost the end of the event, you need to establish control back on the target outpost. You should also control as many outposts surrounding it as possible, especially all the outposts that are on the shortest path from enemy spawn point to the event location. Camp at that outpost nearest to their spawn point, but be ready to teleport back to the event location if it's attacked. If you can primal, you need to primal to capture or protect the target outpost when needed. If you are a primal hunter or support player, someone's likely gonna primal there, so be ready to support your friendly primal so they can win the primal fight. Before Flashpoint, be ready to primal. Get mid and as many outposts as possible. The surrounding outposts will provide you and your teammates a nearby spawn point to rejoin the fight if arriving late or killed in it. Controlling many outposts will also force opposing paragons to walk to mid. This can present your team with an opportunity to intercept them before they can reach mid. It's okay to sacrifice one of your paragon in exchange for two or more of theirs. An example would be, say you control mid, top left, and top right, and there are two paragons walking from Maginot to mid. Now their shortest path would be to jump from top to mid. However, if you control top outpost, you can teleport there and primal them. They are now forced to either primal, die, or run away from you. If they die, you're advancing the event in your favor. If they run away, their paragon status will be revoked, and you're also progressing the event in your favor. You might also lose your paragon status if you intercept them there for too long, but then again, it's okay to sacrifice one paragon in exchange for two or more. If they primal you there, you can either fight or just teleport back to mid. Either way, they can travel to mid fast enough to keep their primal for the event, except Leap Sunder and Poof Knock, and they will waste their primal just to stay alive. Same as Arena before, where you try to win by using Dirty Trick, and that is to kill their potential paragons just before Arena begins. Here at Flashpoint, the Dirty Trick you can use to win is by intercepting enemy paragons, and to do that, you need outpost control. If they decide to enter Flashpoint anyway, their fate should be pretty much sealed when your teammates are waiting for them at mid with primal ready. Flashpoint. This is so often a primal fest. All primals, primal hunters, and supports are needed here. Try to stay alive as long as possible before primaling. You should ideally primal when your enemies have used up all their primals. And your primal hunter players must help reduce the duration of opposing primals. Remember, when there is still a guardian in the fortress, there is still a reliable source of blue buff. When primal versus primal fight breaks out, often whoever has the blue buff wins, so try to gain that blue buff if you're primaling, and try to avoid getting it if you're not primaling. If you control fortress, then the royal guardian is yours. That means your enemy will get the first blue buff. Kill them as fast as possible while avoiding a primal fight with whoever has the blue buff. Basically, you need to keep track of the movement of the blue buff and obtain it for yourself when you are primaling. And that's the end of the mid-game phase. Now I'm gonna use this remaining time to talk about the buffs that you can use to obtain the power spike in this phase, and also the macro objective of this phase, the Overseer. Alright, let's start with the blue buff. This buff is so underrated. It reduces your primary reload time, dodge cooldown, ability cooldown, primal attack cooldown, primal power cooldown. You can get it from killing a guardian, wild slingers, spitters, hounds, hellions, or other people carrying it, so it's transferable. It doesn't last for very long, so it's around 10 or 20 seconds. You should try to get it whenever you can, but if it's from a spitter, leave some spitters for your allies if you're in an area you control. If it's an area your opponent controls, kill all the spitters to deny them from getting the blue buff. The same is true with heavy ammo too. When you're at an area controlled by the enemy, you should use up all the heavy ammos there. If your heavy is full, just fire it into the abyss. Paragon buff. It doesn't have a time limit, It lasts for as long as you're alive. You get this from being a Paragon in Arena and in Flashpoint, by the way. It provides you with increased damage and increased health for as long as you have it. The damage increase is not as dramatic as with Mechanaut buff though. It is transferable, so that means whoever or whatever kills you will get the Paragon buff. Guardians, Hunters, Overseers, and all the other NPCs, they can get your green buff if they kill you. So if you get killed by a Guardian, you can get it back by killing that Guardian. Kill streak buff. I forgot to mention this in the intro for this phase, but it's kind of similar to Paragon buff. It lasts for as long as you're alive, provides you with increased damage and health. You can get this by getting a pentakill, deca kill, mega kill, or omega kill, but this buff is not transferable. Whoever kills you will only get a shutdown point and an announcement, but not your kill streak buff. So if you're playing a squishy build like Luma Prodigal with 0% health bonus, for example, kill streak buff and Paragon buff will make it easier for you to survive because of the increased health. Dreadnought, by far the most important and most impactful buff in the game. Dreadnought can change the tide of an event or even a whole phase. Dreadnought is by far the #1 priority in the game. When it arrives, everyone who can primal must rush there by taking the shortest possible route, and everyone who can't must provide a safe and convenient passage for those who can, by capturing the outpost near it. And if you play a build that is good at Dreadnought stealing, you must also try to contest it, whether you can primal or not. This includes items like Volatile Mine, Luma Arrival, Hailstorm, and in the late game, the core behemoth will also spawn near the Dreadnought, so getting that Dread also gives you a big opportunity to get the core behemoth. Mechanaut, not as valuable as the Dreadnought, but it can lock some squishy builds out of the game altogether for a short while if their team doesn't get it. So imagine a player playing Luma Prodigal with 0% health bonus. Now the combination of reduced vision from a night event plus enemy getting the Mechanaut buff can get that player into trouble when walking alone. Even just a swarm of bots when encountered at close range to them can kill them or force them to use their primal. But that player can just play safer during that time, and they can still primal. So Mechanaut provides a large amount of damage increase, but only for limited time, and it's not transferable. You can use this buff to make it easier for you to kill Overseer, or just to deny your enemy from using it to kill your Overseer. Overseer. This is the macro objective of the mid-game. The deadline for killing it is before core behemoth shows up, so that's by the end of mid-game basically. The absolute deadline to kill it though is definitely before Final Harvest begins. Don't worry about it anymore once Final Harvest starts. At that time it's already too late. In mid-game, it is acceptable to trade 1 or 2 of your Imperial Guardians with the opposing Overseer. That's why keeping your Imperials alive in early game is important. It's so that you don't provide an outpost near your Overseer for your enemies to teleport to or to spawn from if they get killed trying to kill the Overseer. Really, if they have to respawn from a far outpost after getting killed by the Overseer to resume their attacks, your Overseer regens so fast, and by the time they get there again, your Overseer will be at full health again. And if they realize this and they try to take your Imperials before your Overseer, well then you've just bought yourself time to kill their Overseer, making it a favorable exchange. Keeping your Overseer alive is really beneficial to you too in Final Harvest. I'll talk more about it in the next part where I'll cover the late game phase. But TLDR, during Final Harvest, bots and some new players will attack and even primal your Overseer if it's still alive, making the enemy team effectively has less player than it actually does because some bots and some new players will not be participating in the actual objective of the event, and that is controlling more outposts than the other team. And that 5k points they gain from killing your Overseer will be gone in no time if they don't have outpost control dominance. Also, in late game, if you have an outpost control dominance and more points than your enemy, it is okay to exchange your Overseer for a Final Harvest trigger, be it core behemoth or winning repeat events. And that's it for this video. Stay tuned for part 3 where I will cover a late game phase and Final Harvest. Thank you all for watching.